Lost. It's on Netflix, and if you've never seen it before, you might be tempted to give it a shot. Which makes sense. I mean, Lost has some serious strengths going for it if you're a fan of science fiction. It's well directed, well acted. It is one of the best musical scores of any television show ever. It's got good cinematography. It's got Michelle Rodriguez! Or at least it did until she got a DUI. There's just one little problem with Lost. Okay, there's like 100 problems with Lost, but in particular it has this one problem, and that's the ending. Oh god. Why is the ending so bad? Oh god, the ending is fucking awful. Not only is the ending completely unsatisfying, it will seriously challenge your ability to have faith in any serialized show ever again. Like even now, when I watch a show where a mystery is foreshadowed for a future episode, I cynically think that the show is just lying to me, like Lost did. And no, I'm not just saying that because George R.R. Martin hated on the ending too. I mean, what does that guy know about endings anyway? You see, you can actually calculate the fact that Lost jumped a shark because from the middle of the second season up to the finale, Lost lost roughly half of its viewers. And online, the ending of Lost is as infamous as any ending to any TV finale ever. Seriously, when the words worst ending ever are brought up, what are the first things people think of? Seinfeld, How I Met Your Mother, Evangelion, Mass Effect, Remember Me, Monster a Go-Go, Knowing, that Nicolas Cage movie no one ever saw. The ending of Lost is as notorious as all of those, and it may even be worse than any of them. And it begs the question, what the fuck happened?
Son of a bitch!
How could a show so good end so badly?
I love you.
And just what is it about the ending that's so awful anyway? I mean, if you've never seen Lost, you've got to be curious by now, right? You must be thinking, is the ending really that bad? The answer's yes, by the way. But here's the problem. It's actually kind of hard to find a comprehensive negative review of Lost online because no one wants to rewatch 121 episodes of a show they found disappointing just to reconfirm that it's disappointing. Well, this is where I come into play, because I've rewatched all 6 seasons of Lost in an effort to provide a coherent essay on why the ending is no good. What makes me an authority on Lost? In order to make sense of the nonsensical things that happened at the end of the series, I'm going to do a season-by-season synopsis of the show and detail how each season ultimately culminated in the red-headed stepchild that is the finale.
We're hoping for a legacy where people say, I invested 6 years of my life really caring deeply about this show, and I feel that the way that it ended showed an equal amount of respect and caring for the show on the part of the storytellers.
Yeah, about that. So before we get to the bad stuff, let's actually take some time and talk about how great the first season of Lost was. See, I get that a lot of you guys are probably watching this to hear me mercilessly beat the shit out of the show, and yeah, I'll have some harsh things to say about it, but first and foremost, I criticize out of love. Or past love. Lost was once a really, really good show, and the reason its ending even matters is that the show was really interesting, and the characters are worth following. In fact, Lost is one of the best pilot episodes of any show ever. It begins with Jack, our protagonist, opening his eyes in a strange jungle environment. He hears screaming, runs out into a clearing, and sees that the plane he was on has crashed onto an island. People are running around frantic. One poor dude even gets sucked into a jet engine. Within 10 minutes, you're hooked. Seriously, this was a brilliant way to begin the series. If you really want people to be interested in your story, have something compelling happen immediately. Don't open with some overblown narration like you'd find in a sci-fi movie.
Earth. Before the war. New York. Before I was born.
Yeah, like that. And really, what's more compelling than a plane crash? Especially for a show that began only 3 years after 9/11, and at a time when Survivor was still a hugely popular show. Speaking of which, does anyone still watch Survivor? What could possibly happen in Survivor that hasn't already happened in any of the previous 28 seasons?
13th person voted out of Survivor Guatemala. Judd.
Thanks, guys. Hope you guys all get bit by a freaking crocodile. Scumbags.
Anyway, throughout the season, we're introduced to a few of the 50 or so survivors from the plane crash. And if you've already seen the show, just bear with me for a minute. There's Jack, the doctor, Sawyer, the lovable asshole, Sun and Jin, the Korean couple, Saeed, Hurley, John Locke, Claire, who's super pregnant at first, Charlie, who's macking on her, Boone and his sister Shannon. There's also Kate! Right away, we're introduced to the fact that the island is extremely mysterious. There's a smoke monster on the island. Locke, who was in a wheelchair prior to the crash, can now walk. Jack's dad, who is dead and in a coffin on the plane, is suddenly walking around too. Meanwhile, there's a pattern of numbers everywhere that you'll see throughout the show. Numbers that are very important for some reason. And by the end of the season, Jack and Locke are looking down into a mysterious hatch that somehow exists in the middle of this tropical island. At its core, the first season is gripping because it's grounded in reality, which is a trait the show unfortunately shakes off over the course of time. But you can't help but feel for these guys who just want to get on a raft and get back to civilization. And there's real tension whenever someone wanders into the woods because you don't know what the hell's out there. It's actually scary. Even the mysteries seem grounded. Like, you got the sense that they could all lead up to something truly epic, especially since there'd be flashbacks where the characters' lives would intertwine without them knowing it. Unfortunately, and this is where things get negative, a lot of the mysteries introduced in the first season go completely unresolved. In a flashback, Claire goes to visit a fortune teller who, it later turns out, is a proven fraud. And yet, the fortune teller adamantly tells Claire that she absolutely must get on Oceanic Flight 815, which is the plane that crashes on the island.
Well, I can't go tomorrow. I have to get my...
It has to be this flight. It can't be any other. Flight 815. Flight 815.
Given that he shouldn't be able to see the future, why was he so adamant about this? Why did he want her on this doomed flight?
Maybe he knew.
It certainly seemed like he had a premonition or some sort of ulterior motive.
He knew. He knew about the plane. What was going to happen. Oh my God, he knew.
Well, we never find out. Then there's the mystery of Jack's dad's coffin. While we eventually do discover why Jack's dad is moving around, sort of, when Jack finds the coffin his dad was in and opens it, Christian Shepherd's body is missing. Where did it go? Who would even move the corpse? Never find that one out either. And then there's the biggest question mark of the first season.
Walt!
In season 1, the show makes it really clear that there's something special about Walt, to the point that he basically has superpowers.
Sometimes when he's around, things happen. He's different somehow.
He can control the weather.
I'm gonna get your dog back as soon as it stops raining. Hey, listen to me. I'm gonna get your dog back.
He can magically guide a knife to a spot just by thinking about it.
Whoa.
It was weird. I actually saw it in my mind or something.
He can summon birds. Yeah, birds. He even delivered Locke a cryptic warning about the hatch when he shouldn't have even known about it.
What'd you say?
Don't open it, Mr. Locke. Don't open that thing.
What thing? What do you...
Just don't open it.
In fact, it's heavily implied that Walt is somehow behind everything, or at the very least can make things happen just by thinking about them. In a few episodes, we see Walt reading a comic book. This is a pretty obvious homage to The Watchmen, which also features a black kid reading a comic book, and I can say that it's an homage with absolute certainty because Damon Lindelof fucking loves The Watchmen. In The Watchmen, the comic book the kid is reading is analogous to the events that are taking place in the main story. In Lost, it goes a step further because the things that Walt is reading are actually being manifested in real life. His comic features a polar bear, and then, wouldn't you know it, polar bears start showing up and attacking them. In a flashback, we see that he even owned a stuffed polar bear as a kid. The comic also features a part about dudes pushing a button to save the world, which clearly refers to the hatch. Now, given all of that, you'd think that there'd be some great revelation about Walt. You know, a bit of a payoff, an explanation as to how or why he can do these things. Nope. It turns out that the indigenous people on the island, who are called the Others, decide to kidnap Walt in the season 1 finale.
The boy. We're gonna have to take him.
And you almost never see him again the rest of the series. Yep. In season 2, the writers try to justify eliminating Walt from the show by having the Others babble about how special Walt is, and how his powers are so great that they need to move him off the island because he's a threat or something. Naturally, none of this is ever elaborated on, nor do we ever see any of this happening.
Walt's fine. He's a very special boy.
Did Walt ever appear in a place he wasn't supposed to be?
They make me take tests.
They make you what?
We're not going to talk about that.
They're not who they say they are.
Walt,
they're pretending.
You want me to put you in the room again?
What's happening?
He did it again.
Did what again?
You know.
Well, you're gonna have to tell him to stop doing it.
You were the one who wanted him here.
Jacob wanted him here. He's important. He's special.
He's dangerous.
Oh, and he can kill birds, too. Ooh. You know, since Walt was so special, you'd think he'd have been able to escape from them. Like, you know how there are those giant birds that the show pointlessly introduces near the end of season 2? You'd think that Walt could have just, like, summoned a whole nest of them, and he could have had the birds pick off the others one by one and just massacre them and end the show right there. But no, they get Walt off the island, but not before Ben rationalizes it to the audience one last time.
We got more than we bargained for when Walt joined us, so I suppose this is what's best.
And that's it. Bye-bye, Walt. Now, you may have a hunch why this little kid character was abruptly eliminated from a show where only a few days passed per episode, and guess what? Your hunch is probably right. The writers basically wrote him off the show because his actor was getting too big for the role. In fact, they wrote him off to such a degree that they pretended that the whole subplot of him having crazy-ass psychic powers never happened. In preparation of this review, I watched a lot of those What We Know So Far About Lost TV specials that were airing during the show's run, and the one constant between all of them was that the executive producers didn't mention Walt's powers in any single one of them. It's like they were hoping people would just forget about him over time. The most they ever did was confirm why Walt's character had to be knocked off in an interview just before the finale.
The other question that that really percolates to the top is what's up with Walt? When are we going to see Walt again? Which is a great question, and what the actual answer is Malcolm David Kelly is now 39 years old.
like 6'5".
Yeah, we made a big deal out of him, and we cast Malcolm. He was 12 playing 8, and then towards the end of season 1, he'd be talking, and you'd start to hear little Peter Brady puberty, creeping in, and we're like, we got to get that kid on the raft stat. True story.
True story! Hey, you know that character that we arbitrarily made really significant? Well, we pointlessly eliminated him, and you'll never find out anything about him, and it's all because of a massive oversight. Isn't that great? Buy the DVDs. You know, from the very beginning, there was this big debate whether or not Lost's writers had a long-term plan to handle the series, or if they were just making shit up on the fly. And to me, what they did with Walt is Exhibit A, that no, they never had a long-term plan. The writers may have thrown mysteries out there with the intention of eventually catching up to them, but in 2004, if they really cared about what was going to happen to the show in 2010, surely someone in the writers' room would have stood up and said, "Hey, the guy playing the kid is going to have his balls dropped soon. Maybe we shouldn't create all these elaborate mysteries around a character who we'll have to get rid of in a season or two." But hey, I'm gonna go ahead and cut the producers some slack here, because at least they were upfront and honest about getting rid of Walt. It's not like they gave an interview on the eve of season 4 that completely contradicts all of that. Right?
We've always known Malcolm was going to grow faster than we could shoot the show, and we planned for it. Trust us. Please trust us. You'll see Walt again, but you're gonna have to be patient. Sorry.
Oh. So 3 years earlier, you guys were totally telling people that Walt's elimination was all part of a plan, but you only decided to tell the truth about it years later when you thought no one would give a shit. Yeah, that's totally acceptable. Can't imagine why someone would get mad about that. Oh, and in case anyone was wondering, the grand total of screen time Walt gets after season 3 is 3.5 minutes. He gets less than 20 lines of dialogue during that time, and those lines are so small and inconsequential that I can show you all of them right now in less than a minute.
Hey, Hurley. When you came back, I was waiting for one of you to come see me, but nobody did. You know who did come see me? Jeremy Bentham. I don't understand why you're all lying. Like my dad. Hey, John, what happened? I've been having dreams about you. You were on the island wearing a suit, and there were people all around you. They wanted to hurt you, John. It's my dad. Is he back on the island? I haven't talked to him in 3 years. I figured he must have gone back. So why'd you come to see me? Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Well, I gotta go. It was good seeing you, John.
So, you said there was a plan with Walt.
Once this kid is taller than me, he cannot be on the show anymore.
And there clearly was no plan.
We gotta get that kid on the raft stat.
And then you later admitted you had no plan.
It's out in the back of my truck.
No, that was actually you would still be seeing Walt on the show. I mean, we just ran into a problem where, the actor aged and he's now like 17 and he doesn't fit in the timeline of what we're doing right now.